my report, I'm going to talk a little bit on the national level. I was fortunate that President Ott appointed me to on a Farm Bill Study Committee, and somehow my friends elected me chairman of that. But I don't know how they did that, but they did. They must have discussed it before we got there. I was late that day, I believe. Anyway, but South Carolina Farm Bureau does have a Farm Bill Study Committee, and we've met a few times. And I'm also on the National Legislative Committee, and Harry and I went along with 7 others to D.C. back in January, February. Visited with all our congressional people. And we were fortunate enough that Congressman Rice arranged a supper with Congressman Conaway, who's chairman of the House Ag Committee. And it's a blessing to have a supper with somebody that you need to discuss the Farm Bill with. And we had probably 3-hour discussion with him. And of course, he has cotton in his district and is aware that cotton was left out of the previous Farm Bill. So we were able to talk to him one-on-one, telling him our concerns about cotton not being a covered commodity. And I know it's some of y'all's concerns also. Hopefully with that discussion and other discussions, we'll if the baseline allows us, we will try to get cotton covered in the next Farm Bill. Another issue in the Farm Bill, and it doesn't affect anybody in this room, but it does affect American farmers, is the dairy industry is not served very well with the current Farm Bill either. So we're going to work on the dairy issues also to try to bring them into the fold. And I was going to call on Gary back there. Gary, don't you want to get up and say something about the water, or what our debates in the state have been talking about water? You don't have to come up here.
Yeah, I'll be Keith, I'll be brief, but we do have a lot of issues as it relates to water. On a number of fronts, we had the final leg of the regulatory stool put in place in 2010, we thought, when we worked with a number of groups, environmental groups, of business interest, general public, and General Assembly passed the 2010 Surface Water Act, which set up a permanent system for surface water. So that gave us a permanent system for surface water. We have a permanent system for groundwater called capacity use, and we have the Drought Response Act, three-legged stool. In late 2013, farm was cited in Aiken County that a lot of folks just, for whatever reason, did not like it. And they did issue with the Surface Water Withdrawal Act, which, as agriculture, we are treated a bit different than the rest of the industry folks and public works utilities. Instead of having to get a permit, we have to get a registration from DHEC before we start pumping a certain amount of water to the surface water source. We have to meet criteria, minimum standards. We have to make safe yield before we get permission to withdraw that water. So we are regulated, but we're not regulated to the extent of some of the other users. And there's many reasons for that, and we made that case in the Assembly. Nevertheless, that controversy has continued over the years, and it's not really that many people, and they're not saying anything new, but they manage to get in the newspaper every now and then, and so we're having to deal with that. And that has, what's happened is it's moved from a surface water issue to groundwater as well. So we have legislation that we're having to look at and watch and work with members of the General Assembly on surface water. The Department of Health and Environmental Control is doing some work with groundwater in coastal plain, 7 counties in the coastal plain right now. They're creating more regulatory structure for groundwater. So the bottom line is there are just a lot of water issues out there for agriculture, and we're dealing with them and working with the General Assembly and other groups as well, environmental groups and other business groups, make sure that this is fair to everybody and that this is fair. So that's going on. I guess relating to that is also another issue that deals with water, and that's dams and reservoirs bill that has been in the General Assembly for a couple of years. It actually emerged. It was one of the, I guess, products of the Great Flood of 2015 when we had a number of dams breached throughout the state. And so there was a call to regulate folks who had been damaged, who had to deal with, had dams on their property, to put more enforcement on that. So we've been working with the General Assembly on that issue as well. And that bill is actually cleared the House, and it's over in the Senate now, and that's where we're all at. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, Gary. Thank you. And Gary is our go-to guy on legislature stuff in the state. So he's very knowledgeable and keeps on top of things for you. And he works for you and your membership. That's part of your membership dues are paying him. So it's good to have somebody looking out for us. I'm going to be quiet now so we don't stay here all night and not make too many comments. The next thing is the nominating committee. Let's go.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you look in your booklets, you'll see the report from the nominating committee, and this is the recommendation now from the nominating committee. I won't bore you with all the names. Everything is the same as it was, other than regretfully I have to report that, as was mentioned, that Dan Yarnett, his name was going to be removed because of his death. And the other thing is that the new women's committee chairman, which is Kate Allen Miller. So that's the only changes in it, and present to you as a recommendation. And if there's any other names, Mr. President, I'll turn it over to you to get a vote on it.
Do we have any more nominations? Anybody want to make a nomination of anybody else? Then I hear a motion to approve Cullen's report. Bitchy, your second. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Thank you. Vic, you gonna do the resolutions? Okay. Unless you want to. I'm all right. Go ahead.
This will be short and sweet. On the national level, none of the resolutions have changed in the book, so I'll tell you that. So I'm not going to read them all to you, but they were the same. We did some adjusting last year, but we've left them as they are. On the state level, we added one, and if you turn to that page where it says Dillon County Resolutions State, if you look at the very bottom, number 10, and it states no member can hold 2 executive offices at the same time. And that was put in, spread out the leadership and the thing, and make sure that everybody got a shot at being on the different committees. Do I have a motion that we accept this resolution number 10?
I make a motion we accept resolution number 10.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, ma'am. Laverne? Thank you. Any discussion? Anybody need to talk about it? All in favor, please say aye. Anybody opposed, like sign. Mr. President.
Vic, I want to, and any of y'all can make a resolution too now. I want to add one, and some of you have a copy at your table. I didn't have enough copies for everybody. So let me read what I want to add. And it deals with what Gary's talking about on the state level. But before we discuss it, I'm going to just read the resolution. And we didn't bring this before the resolution committee, so it needs to be brought before this body to be voted on, is the reason we're doing it this way. Dillon County Farm Bureau believes that dams made by beavers or other natural occurrences should not fall under the regulations of DHEC or any other governmental agency. Property owners should not have to maintain, inspect, or be liable for damages from these dams. I gotta have a second to that from somebody. Pitch you. Now we can discuss it, and let me explain it just a little bit. In the current legislation that passed the House, I think Gary brought up, what about a beaver dam, to one of the legislators, and they kind of brushed him off like we're not going to discuss that. There's a lot of beaver dams that would fall under the regulations that are currently being talked about in Columbia, and you would hate to have to spend $100,000 fixing your beaver dam to comply with the regulations, wouldn't you? So that's the reason I'm putting this in there, to give Gary some guidance in the legislature and what he may or may not. And it may not, it's got to pass all the way to Myrtle Beach now. Just passing here is not good enough. But it may not pass here, I might be opposed to it. That's all I know. Anyway, is there anybody else that wants to talk about it? Well, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. All right, now, if any of y'all have any resolution that you think we need to carry to the resolution committee at the state level, and then it goes to the beach to be voted on, we can do it now, or if we have to, I guess we could do it another time, but I think now is the only time we can really do it. But you can do it at the beach in open resolutions. You can make a resolution just like this of some kind. So we do accept resolutions at the beach also. Nobody's going to discuss anything else? All right, thank you. The next thing, Cullen, you're going to introduce.
Thanks, Keith. It becomes my pleasure to introduce our speaker for tonight. A man that needs no introduction. He's from St. Matthews. He's a row crop farmer, cotton, peanuts, and corn. He farms with his brother. And he has been involved with the Farm Bureau. He served in the House for several years as a House Minority Leader. He's also resigned from that to become the FSA Director for South Carolina under the Obama administration. Then, in 2015, he decided to run for President of South Carolina Farm Bureau and won. And he's making us a great president. He's a great friend of all of us. And his wife is, we're not leaving his wife out, even though she's not here. He might get back to her. But he has 2 children and a great wife by the name of Linda. At this time, please help me welcome President Harry Young.
Good evening. My wife sends her regrets for not coming. She is actually keeping our 2 grandsons tonight. So in her place, I got to ride over with Gary. So I'm not sure if I traded up or down, Gary, but at least you drove, so I guess I got the better end of the stick. But I really want to start off by simply thanking each and every one of you for choosing to be a member of Farm Bureau. I recognize that you didn't have to be a member of Farm Bureau. You know, you chose to. Now, I would like to think that you chose because two reasons. Number one, we got the greatest insurance in the world, and we got the greatest insurance sales force anywhere around. So you wanted to be a member so you could buy insurance from us. And also you understood that your membership in Farm Bureau helps us advocate for agriculture, not only in Dillon County, not only in South Carolina, but all across the country, and gives you a voice of agriculture. Now, you heard Keith talk a little bit about his role in the federal farm bill, going and lobbying members of our congressional delegation in Washington. That is an important thing, and what we lobby for are things that impact us every day as farmers. But not all of y'all are farmers, okay? All of you have some background probably or some connection to the farm. So you understand that a farm bill is important. But also important is things like trade. There's a whole lot of talk about trade in Washington. Now, I'm kind of like our president. There's not a single deal that's ever been made that can't be made better, okay? But at the end of the day, we've got to have a deal. And we can't afford to do away with all the deals, because then we don't have anybody to sell our products to. And our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the south, which is Canada and Mexico, are our number one and our number three trading partners. So it is vitally important to us that in production agriculture that we have markets. So while we are fighting for a farm bill, we are also suggesting to the leadership in Washington that let's get a good deal. We want a good deal, but at the end of the day, we really want a deal so that we have access to those markets to sell our products. And also, we want a legal workforce. Now that gets real tricky sometimes, you know, but when you are in agriculture, we've got to have a labor supply that's willing to do the work that's necessary to harvest the crops, plant the crops, and do the things that are necessary. So when we go to Washington, we have a plate full just in Washington trying to do and support issues that are important to agriculture going forward. You heard Gary talk about a few of the things that we fight for in the state, whether it be water, whether it be sales tax exemptions for ag products, whether it be permitting poultry houses. I will tell y'all there's a new issue almost every day. Throw into the mix the issues that we've had with the power companies lately that everybody's been reading about, that nobody really has a solution for the problem. Lucas, I don't envy you at all having to go back to Columbia in January and try to fix these problems. But because we've got good representatives like Lucas that are fighting for us every day, I still believe we will find solutions to those problems. And then we come all the way down to the local level at county council level. You know, having been a school board member for a long time, 12 years back in the ancient world, you know, when you deal with local taxes, there are no easy answers. I used to be conflicted all the time. I was dealing with somebody's taxes on one end and somebody's children on the other. The ones that had children wanted me to spend more money. The ones that didn't have it, but were paying taxes, didn't want me to spend any. So our elected officials on the local level are the same way. You got needs that our local county residents want, but then to give them those needs and take care of those needs, you got to sometimes put some levy some taxes. So county councils, state government, federal government, Farm Bureau is fighting for agriculture on all of those levels. Now, where do you come into this picture? It's pretty simple. I tell people all the time, those of us that are in production agriculture make up somewhere between 1 and 1.5% of the population. So if I'm going to see Lucas and I got 1.5% of the votes in my pocket, I'm not very big on his agenda because I only have 1.5% of the vote. That's not very much. But when I explained to Lucas that what I do feeds 100% of the people every day, now I get his attention. But this is the crux of the story that I want to kind of relay to y'all. Yes, we feed 100% of the people every day. But what percent of those people that we feed understand where their food comes from? How many of our 4th graders, maybe how many of our 12th graders, maybe how many of our adults understand that when they go and they buy a Hardee's hamburger, how many of them do you really believe understand that at some point in the makeup of that Hardee's hamburger, that beef cow that they drove by on the road had a part to play in making that hamburger? How many of our children do you think really understand that that beef patty ultimately was that cow? How many of them do you think actually understand that the bun was made from some farmer who grew a wheat crop? Or how many of them that go to Chick-fil-A and get chicken nuggets really understand that without that chicken house down the road growing those chicken McNuggets wouldn't be there? So what we've got to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we've got to be willing to tell the story of agriculture. Because it's a great story. But sometimes those that oppose what we do tell a different story. And we can use water as an example. I will tell you without a hesitation in my voice, Farm Bureau supports the environment. Okay? There is no way in the world that I would be a part, or you would be a part of an organization that wanted to destroy the water supply in the state of South Carolina. I've got grandchildren coming up. You know, I want to protect the water. But we also want to use the natural resources that the good Lord has given us in a responsible way. But we can't do it unless we are willing to engage the public. And that's where you as Farm Bureau members, and that's the role that Farm Bureau is trying to fill, that void of telling the story of agriculture. Now we do it in a lot of different ways. We go into the classrooms. We have ag in the classroom that some of your membership money supports. And we bring the teachers out to the farm. And I will tell you, in the 2 years that I've been president, one of the biggest joys has been going every year to the graduation of those teachers. And they have these pictures of where they visited different farms. And we'll have a picture of a teacher holding a chicken. It is the first time they've ever actually touched a chicken. We'll have them petting Jersey cows at the milking. First time they've ever seen a cow get milked. We take them and show them big farm equipment. First time they've ever been exposed to it. And you say, well, why is that important? Because we give them the tools then to go back to the classroom and teach those 4th graders that it's more to getting their food than simply going to the grocery store. I'll give you a little true story. It kind of embarrasses me. My 8-year-old grandson, I've been giving some of these speeches along, and I said, you know, I better test this theory on my own grandchildren. So he's 8 years old. And I said, Bryce, where do eggs come from? He calls me Happy. He said, Happy, you know where they come from. They come out of the refrigerator. I said, you know, I got a little bit of work to do right here at home. So we had this conversation. And he said, yeah, somebody had to grow the corn to feed the chickens. Somebody had to raise the chickens. Somebody had to get the eggs, get them to the grocery store, and then get them to the refrigerator. So he started connecting the dots. And I want to challenge each and every one of you to help us start connecting the dots with that other 98.5% of the people who don't farm. Because when we go to the Lucases of the world, Representative Adams, I should say, we've got to know that we've got your support. And we've got to know that we've got the support of all of those people that we grow food for every day so that they don't. Because if we don't, ladies and gentlemen, eventually, when we go and we need things like special property taxes on our ag property, or special consideration on the sales tax on farm equipment and fertilizer and the things that we use every day, we aren't going to have the support of the elected officials. But I'm convinced that if we engage and we tell them what we do for a living and how we do it and how important it is, whether you're on the county council, the state government, federal government, or wherever you are, I'm convinced that we have a great story to tell, and it is a story that the public will buy into, and it is a story that they will continue to support. Because I don't believe all of those people that are 2 generations removed from agriculture, because if we were having this conversation 50 years ago, everybody in the room would live on a farm. That's just the facts of life. But fast forward to today, 50 years, very few of us actually live on working farms, and now everybody's moving to the city. So we've got to engage them. It is not something just because we want to. It is a necessity if I'm going to be able to have a working farm that my grandchildren have an opportunity to farm. I can't hide from this challenge. And I have to address it. I would ask for your support in helping us to address it. It is a wonderful story. Gary tells me all the time, we don't tell our story enough. And I believe he's correct. And I ask you to help us continue to tell that story. And I want you to know that every time you pay your Farm Bureau membership, part of that money, a large part of that money, is going to tell the story of agriculture and to work to ensure that the future for our next generations to come is protected so that we will have a sustainable and supportable agricultural industry today, tomorrow, and into the future. So thank you for choosing to be a member of Farm Bureau, and thank you for being a member of the Farm Bureau family, and most importantly, on a selfish note, thank you for allowing my wife and I to be in a leadership position of the best organization in the world, Farm Bureau. Thank y'all, and I hope y'all have a great night. Thank you.
Ain't you up for re-election? Harry is up for re-election this year, too. He didn't say that, but anyway, I'm going to support him. Is there anything else that we need to talk about tonight before we adjourn? Don't everybody jump up at one time now. I want to thank all of you for coming. I do have some hats over here, and I didn't put them out earlier, but I've got about 70 or so, and I don't believe there's 70 of us here. So, and I've got 3 different styles. There's some that Dillon people might like, some that Latta people might like, some that other people might like. I don't know about Lakeview. We didn't have a selection very good for Lakeview. But anyway, all right. I hear a motion to adjourn. Everybody wants to leave. Everybody wants to get up and leave then.